My name's Erin. I'm here with Anna Withers and Lily Walsh. It's July 29th, 2023, and we are going to talk about Lily's background in farming, and then we're also going to talk a little bit about the kinds of projects that she's involved with right now, and then we're going to talk a little bit about some of the challenges or lessons that she can share with us, the listeners.
Let me make sure I take note one more time, so I kind of outline.
Okay, sure. Yeah, you can even hold on to that if you
Oh,
want. Yeah.
okay. All right.
I might have to peek over your shoulder.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
I didn't bring my copy.
Yeah,
So.
that's all right. I have a bunch
Okay.
in the office. And then,
One question at a time because there's multiple questions.
yeah,
So
there's quite a few.
and so I don't get carried away too.
So, and we'll pace ourselves. So maybe just to get started too, I'll ask you your age. How old are you?
Good question. I need to do the math.
In lunar years.
47.
47. And what race do you consider yourself to be?
White.
Okay.
But
And
it's
how-
kind of interesting. It's like white, and it's like, what is it? European, Eastern European. It's
Yeah.
like where Asians you have like 20 different.
Yeah. And do you consider yourself to be female? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So maybe if you could tell me a little bit about maybe actually, instead of starting with background, maybe you could tell me a little bit about what's going on for you now, because it seemed like as we were coming up the stairs, you're in the middle of a lot of projects. Gardening isn't a big part this year because you've been traveling.
Yep. Sounds good.
Let me ask you a little bit about what kind of projects you're up to right now.
So right now what we have I think about 12 sheep, 12 goats, 5 cows, about almost 10, I think, pigs, chickens, ducks. We had geese, we have guineas, turkeys. I think so far I like goats a lot, but they require a lot of good fencing. So, and that's one of the big projects is continuous improvement with fencing, because when we started, we didn't know what we were doing. And now we're working on preparing another property so we can move the goats and sheep where the grass and brush it's been virgin for quite a while, and part of that will be to prepare that new property for the next projects as well. I look at the farm management holistically, like a big picture. So it's not just like having cows or having goats. And I'm still learning, figuring out which animals, how to best not just focus on income, which is something I would like to figure out, how to make money farming.
I think you're not alone there.
Seems like the case. But how to manage the land, how to make it healthy, because our land was not only overgrown, it is infested with ticks and all kinds of bugs. We couldn't walk through. There was no good fencing, and how do you get to the fencing without bulldozing everything down? And it's a big learning curve, but fencing is a big part and also learning how to manage the animals themselves when they give birth, when they get sick, how to prevent even freaky accidents, which we had this year. So that is some of the projects we're working on.
Okay, and when you say we, who's working with you on this project?
So I'm pretty much the main one, but my husband, when he is after work and between, he's a teacher. So right now is the summer. My brother-in-law joined us recently, so he helps with some daily tasks, especially like the evening, we call them evening duties, closing, feeding the pigs, feeding the animals, and closing the birds and feeding the dogs. They're a big part of the farm because they make sure our animals stay safe. They are our guardians, and we have cats to make sure the mice and rats don't overrun.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's kind of we have that's the help we have right now. I hope to get more help in the future.
Okay. you also were talking about you're doing a move right now.
Correct.
So maybe you can tell us a little bit about what the move is and why you've decided to do that move.
So we are moving from our current property, which is a 10-acre property, to an 8-acre property, so that the 10-acre property would have some rest, give grass some time to regrow, and at the same time, the 8-acre property is just overgrown, the brush, everything, so we need to get that under control as well. And the big part of that, once again, is we are starting to create a paddock, so that the animals could be contained, not going to the neighbors, eating their flowers and everything else. And then we will add more paddocks to that as well. And as in the process, the animals not only have food, but they also help rejuvenate the surroundings, the earth. And the area, the first paddock will be another future garden. That's where they will be. If it makes sense.
Okay, so you had, so I'm assuming that what you mean with the animals will help with the earth is that their manure.
Correct.
And
Yes. Eat the brush, or like at our current property, we're at the 10-acre, we had a lot of poison ivy. It was just taking over. So I got poison ivy over myself everywhere, and now you can't find it because the animals help with that process. Yes, we help them initially, but then they help to get it under control.
Was that mostly the goats?
Goats, yeah. Sheep eat that too, but goats are a big part of that too.
Wow, that's incredible. You had mentioned before about the paddocks, and then you said managing animals is something, understanding how they give birth. But you mentioned a freaky accident, so I didn't want to go too far without circling back and finding out what that was.
One of them was a round bale. It had a round ring around it, but the animals started eating it and kind of became like a mushroom. And it actually collapsed on one of the sheep that was about to give birth, about maybe a week away. So by the time I got there, because the bale was so heavy, I couldn't easily lift it. So we lost her and 2 of the babies. So these are the freaky accidents you want to, but we couldn't foresee that. But now, after having had that experience, we are much more careful if we see that you always check your property, check the animals, like you want to do it as much as possible daily, which is hard to do when you have to be absent. So that was one of the things now I'm looking for, is the bale stable. I think it's less likely to happen with cows, but because the sheep and goats, they're shorter, they're eating under. Yeah.
Wow.
So that was one of the accidents.
I'm so sorry about that. Well, so I feel like we probably have that one discussed pretty well. Let's go back to the beginning now, and maybe you can tell me a little bit about your background. When did you start getting interested in farming, animal care?
So I can't really pinpoint the exact year when I had some interest in sustainable lifestyle, living on the land and living off the land. Didn't think it's possible, having spent pretty much all of my adult life in California, where everything is subdivision kind of lifestyle with a small garden, especially having lived in home association settings where in order to plant a tree or a bush, you had to get the association's approval. So I was like, I always wanted land. I'm originally from Ukraine. So summers, weekends, we would go to the village where our grandparents lived. And though I myself was not involved as much in, we didn't call it gardening. It was basically, most of our food came, we grew the food that we ate. My grandparents did, and we ate, so we helped harvest. I always wanted to have that option. and it didn't seem like possible being in California. So during COVID time, we felt like everything that I was thinking of, okay, we might do it in about 10 to 15 years, maybe when we are like fully retire. That will be maybe we'll be able to find land and just start our garden. In 2020, our lifestyles, everything we have been doing until then has changed. We're living overseas, working overseas, and we were stuck in another country. We were stuck in Thailand when everything started shutting down.
Oh my goodness, what were you doing there?
We went there for vacation. We lived in China. We worked in China. And then when we went to Thailand in January, we couldn't go back to our homes. So it was suddenly everything changed, and we went back to our home base. We went back to California, and we felt like, okay, everything in California responded in ridiculous ways to COVID management. Businesses were shut down. You couldn't find place to rent. You couldn't find a job. It's like, okay, what do we do? And it's basically led us to, we started searching. Okay, we were dreaming about land in about 10, 15 or so years. Let's start searching for now. So it started first, we looked in California to be closer to our family, to our kids, and then we didn't find that option. We kept moving, and we landed here in Missouri. So in 2020, we purchased our 10-acre property. That's where I just inside felt like sheep and goats. I was like, okay, what does it mean?
Yes.
Sheep and goats.
Uh-huh.
What does it mean? And as I started to search inside, and somebody called me, and I just mentioned to them, what does it mean, sheep and goats? I was like, you know what? I know somebody who's selling sheep. I was like, I didn't do any research, didn't even look what's out there in the market. Okay, it's gonna be $1,000. I think I have $1,000 exactly.
Yeah, perfect.
Perfect. So we got our sheep. No fencing, nothing. We got our sheep. So that's how we got into farming. Some of it was kind of COVID, driven or pushed. We felt like, okay, it was time. We were not sure about the next year, income, but we felt like, okay, if we have animals, something will happen. And the land, we're hoping that they'll help us manage the land, because the land, like as I mentioned, poison ivy, it was just overgrown. It couldn't get through most parts of the land, and they did a great job.
Uh-huh. So you, as a child, had some experience farming or like tending plants with your grandparents.
Correct. Just potatoes.
And then many years go by, and in those years you've lived in China, you were stranded in Thailand. Did you do any tending gardens or anything?
Not much there. It was very short term, and so no, not much. Not much in California.
And so then this is fairly recent.
Correct.
Are you feeling like you're inventing the wheel? Or
Correct. Yes.
So that would take me to another question here. Like, how are you learning the things that you need to do? What resources have been available to you?
A lot of it is trial and error, basically learning on the job. I don't think there's a manual that's written, this is how you do it. I think after having done this, I can probably work on breaking it down into shorter steps. And a lot of it is YouTube videos, just constantly researching. There are lots of different support groups, like on Facebook. But a lot of them, it's not like where you can go and just find this is the information you need. I have one of my niece's kids. She's now, I think, 15 years old, maybe 16, and she had a very old book on how to take care of goats and sheep, and it's like probably 1950s. And originally, that was my one of my resources when my animals got sick, and now I feel like I can lean a lot on my prior experience and kind of cross-pollinate into other animals, into other situations. It's just kind of incredible. Like, oh, I already know how to do this. Oh, I know how to do this. There's also the Homesteaders Fair in Marshville that's been helpful, but I think it is a good jumpstart, but it is not as useful for day-to-day management, if it makes sense. It's not something you can learn there and remember to apply when you need it. So when you do face a situation, you usually go to either people you know, which unfortunately I didn't have it. So if I was to change something, I would have liked to have a mentor, which I didn't have it, which is...
That's another question coming up. What would you do differently?
What would I do differently? I'll use it as an example. My niece, when they got longhorn cows, and they got it from somebody they already had them for years and have a lot of experience. So they had an advantage, somebody coming in, whether it is with AI or bending them, just if they had a question, they can call and ask. So I think what I would do differently, I would try to find somebody who would be willing not just sell the animals, but it also provide the support, because the person who sold us for example, who we bought sheep from, I asked all these questions, but from their age, any of their prior births, any issues, and pretty much there was silence. So if I were to do it differently, that's what I would do. I would do a lot more homework, a lot more research, take my time, and first of all, you don't not buy the animals only, but get into a relationship with a person who has more experience than I do.
Do you have anyone in your extended family, like maybe say who's back in Ukraine still, who might still be doing traditional methods? Do you have curiosity about the way that your grandparents did things?
Unfortunately, no. So even in Ukraine, because of the industrialization and the way the Soviet Union things were functioning, it was pretty much here's the village, here's the city. Urban and rural lifestyles were so different than the younger generation. They wanted to move out of the villages as soon as possible during my time frame. So having left Ukraine in 1994, I didn't have a chance to really live through when Ukraine was actually an independent country. So I was still there when it was part of the Soviet Union, and the trends were very different back then. So no, not much. And a lot of the practices were still kind of the collective farming. There were so many years been under that influence that the practices integrated into daily farming, that a lot of the practices that before my grandparents, many of them have not survived, if it makes sense. Yes, because like here we have the industrialization and the mono harvesting, like crops approach. It took place there too, unfortunately. So, but what I learned is that when you put something in the ground, you water it, it grows and produces more.
So this is something that you've come to that brings you joy or pleasure. Like this is hard what you're choosing to do, Lily. Why? What's driving you? What's keeping you encouraged?
I know it's so crazy, because in my professional life, I could be earning a lot more, and I think my kids personally they hope that I will go back to my previous career.
And what was that, if you don't mind?
One of them, I'm a lawyer. I was also in real estate. But I'm passionate about law, and I want to practice law. Maybe at some point is integrating it in the field, like farming and agriculture and so on. But right now I feel like my focus, every time I think about practicing law, I'm just like, no, my soul is screaming, I want to do this. And I feel like that's where I belong. And I feel like, it's like, why did it take me so long to get to this point? Why didn't I start that sooner? Why didn't I start that when my kids were young? Like I see like my niece, they have 6 kids. when they came to Missouri, the youngest was about a year old. So now the kids get to do everything. They're driving the tractor. The 11-year-old, 12, he's now 12. He's cutting down the tree. He's, splitting the wood. They just doing everything that I would have liked my kids to be part of that. Our kids are all growing up now, so hopefully at some point they'll come back to that. And I think one of the big inspiration was actually our oldest daughter. When she was still, I think, middle school, she became very passionate about healthy food, good nutritious food. So she didn't drink soda since she was in seventh grade. She was a vegetarian for years until she went to Africa, and that's where she made a choice that if she was to be a vegetarian in Senegal, basically her food options would be even more limited. So she wouldn't be able to eat anything. So she gave up that. And she was interested in sustainable practices as well. So she was my big inspiration. And I have a friend who is an amazing gardener. Her name is Liliya as well. Everything she touches just goes green. And for her, the big inspiration was losing two of our dear friends to cancer, both the same name, Tatiana's, and a third friend going through cancer. And that was we were still in our 30s. For her, it was a wake-up call. And it wasn't as much of a wake-up call for me, but it's like, it makes sense. It makes sense to grow food where you live, eat what you grow, and live off that. Why should our food come from 5,000 miles from here? Who knows what process it has gone, what kind of chemicals it has been exposed to, and that goes into our bodies. I think I believe one of the things that you asked me about, what have I learned from my parents, it's not so much that they taught me, but living during that time frame is that we could walk and get our food. Like even as kids growing up, we were just like, okay, I'm hungry. We didn't wait for our parents to prepare our meal when we were in the village. We would just go into the garden, grab it, and eat it. As close to the ground as you could get. It was still dirty. We didn't care. We just cared. Okay, that's how it was, and I missed that. And a funny thing. So when I got our cow, our first Jersey, it was a crazy thing. So we went to sell our bull. On the way back, and can you imagine? I've been drinking raw milk since day one I came to the United States in 1994. In California, you can't get, it's illegal to get raw milk.
Right.
It's like, but I want raw milk. I miss that farmer's cheese that my grandmother made so much.
Yes.
And you can't find it at the supermarkets. You can't find even at the European or Ukrainian stores. It's not the same. It's the kind of farmer's cheese, it is so thick you can slice it with a knife. And I was like, I want that. And can you imagine, for more than 20 years I've been craving that milk. I've been craving that farmer's cheese. I've been craving that buttermilk that wasn't pasteurized. They didn't go through all this chemical process. That's why I got my Jersey cow.
So you can make it yourself.
Exactly.
Have you made it yet?
Yes, many
Tell
times.
Tell me about that. Do people love it?
Well, it's not enough to, I feel like it's not enough because we had to move our cows to a different property, to 40-acre land, so I don't get to see them often enough to milk them every day, but when I do, just milk. Jersey milk is just amazing. My brother-in-law just tried some. It's like, it tastes so sweet. Because right now we have mostly goat milk. Where we at, it's not enough to meet the demands of our family, so we need more. We need to bring our Jersey back. So
And how many people are living in your house right now?
My husband, well, my brother lives nearby, brother-in-law, and our son is temporary here with us. But I'm hoping that he will eventually be full time with us. So just my husband and I, we're empty nesters.
So your brother-in-law, that's your husband's brother?
Correct.
And where is he from originally?
He's from California. They grew up in Southern California. So once again, he had no experience. I never even touched or saw a sheep or goat. Well, I saw from a distance.
Sure.
Before I had my own. So, and it's the same for him. Even when it comes to growing food, never grew anything, even tomatoes, in his own garden. So, it's a big learning curve, not just for me, but for him as well. And I feel like now I'm mentoring him how to take care of the animals. So it's kind of.
Do you enjoy that? Do you enjoy teaching other people?
I do. I do. I think teaching is that's one of the things we did in China, and just overall, that's kind of in my blood, I think, in my nature. Anything, I love teaching. I like breaking it down. Because part of it is, as you have noticed, I'm a very high context person. I'll give sometimes more detail that's necessary.
Perfect for stories, yes.
So, I do love teaching.
So there's a lot of real international threads here. You mentioned that your daughter had gone to Senegal.
Correct.
What brought her to Senegal?
She was a Peace Corps. They call them volunteers. I guess it's not exactly volunteering, but it is volunteering. And she was there. She had many options to choose from, different countries, but because she's so passionate about sustainable practices and food security, and so she chose to be, I think the position itself was called like Sustainable Agricultural Agent. So, and that's one of the things she lived in a very remote village. There was no electricity at that time when she lived, so no running water. It's a little mud hut, tiny little thing, just for 2 years.
Wow. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and she's been all over the world. She worked in different places. She worked in Canada. She went to school in Israel. So she's currently actually in Bulgaria.
Wow, that's next door to where you grew up, kind of.
Yeah, very close.
That
Very
neck
close.
of the woods,
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. And is she still passionate about sustainability?
She is. She's currently. She was working. As I don't even know how to describe her position. For help rich people manage their resources. So, and that's one of the things she was doing. And I think she's going back to school. She's going to Duke to get her master's degree, and it will be, I think, one of the challenges that she sees in the way, like we share a lot of common values in terms of sustainable practices and the ways of living, of urban versus rural versus suburban, and she's big into like urban gardening too, in terms of she hasn't been doing as much herself recently, but that's one of the things she wants to pursue further in her life, kind of too.
Mm-hmm. So, and I just think it's great that she has a mom that it really resonates for.
I hope so.
So there's all these kinds of echoes, like you've mentioned your soul, and you've mentioned sustainability, and you've mentioned the idea about a healthy lifestyle. So this kind of decision that you've made is about more than making a living. It's about making a kind of a life. Yes.
And the big part, it's not just making a life, food, lifestyle. One of the things I hope to see is building a community around that too. I know there's different communities throughout the country and other places. So one of the things that it really touched me, and I felt like I was at home. There's parts of India that I visited, and I've been there I think about 8 times. Northeastern part of India. I love going there. It is different than what we usually think of what India is like. We think of like Delhi, like Calcutta. this is not the part of India I'm talking about. The part of India I'm talking that has kind of still retained a lot of tribal lifestyles, and not tribal lifestyles as we also think, like, living in the jungle. So, but tribal in terms of management of relationships. So what I mean, they still call themselves tribes. They still identify, we are from such and such tribe. We still speak such language. And very often you will see them, they will live in certain villages. But even in the big cities, they still identify themselves with a certain tribe. And the different regions, they'll say, okay, this is a colony. We live in this colony. So there's a lot of that community aspect, the relationships, where something happens in someone's life, it doesn't happen just somewhere out there. So one of the biggest things we have in this country, challenges, is loneliness. People are so detached from communities. And it's like, for me, I feel like people don't understand what their tribe is, what tribe they belong to. They don't have the tribe around themselves, and they feel miserable. They feel lonely. They get sick. And then I was just was listening to somebody who was sharing about his parents who moved to another country when, like, in their 70s, and then they how they lived beyond 90 years old. Like, okay, nowadays we think 70 years old, like, it's time to retire and time to basically die, get ready for the funeral. But at that age, they were starting new life, a new chapter, and like he was going to describe all the different things they were doing. And what you see is that one of the key lessons is that they found something of a purpose. They found their tribe, they found a community, they found something to live for. And I think that's, when do we find something when do we find that purpose, something to live for? When we have people. We don't live just for ourselves. We don't live for things. We live for people. And I think part of that, hopefully, with a sustainable, not just farming, but lifestyle. And we're not there yet. It's the journey. You hope to build the relationships. So I have a friend who, right before we moved to Missouri, she moved from California to Florida. On the way to Florida, she stopped a few times, as driving, getting some things, moving some things. Stopped one time and then the second time, and I was joking with her, like, why did you move to Florida? Why didn't you move here? And she's like, don't even joke with me like that. Like, she didn't like my joke. Why? Because, like, we already moved, we're moving again. Guess what? After having been in Florida for a few months, she felt alone. It's like, yeah, there's people I could meet, but there were no people that I could connect with. Guess what happened? Less than a year later, they decided to move here.
Yay.
So why? Because she had somebody she connected to and with. So, and we share some things in common. And so I just feel like it is so important that what we do, it is not just about what we do, but it is part of why we do that.
Are you finding community here in the Ozarks? I know you've hooked up
Mm-hmm.
with the Springfield Community Gardens, but then, like, what are your neighbors like? What
Yeah.
kind of relationships do you have with your neighbors who might be from the Ozarks originally?
So where we live right now, we started building a little bit of relationship with one of our neighbors. We just, while I was gone, my husband worked on putting up or redoing part of the fencing together with him, so that I think it was this is a good way to build a relationship with your neighbors. Because of how much we were focusing on just figuring life, farm life, and just on our property, we were not investing as much into the relationship with the neighbors yet. I think that's one of the areas we need to focus on. I have another friend, family who moved to this area. I think she is a great example of how to build relationship with the neighbors. I'll give you an awesome example of what she has done, how much I can learn from that. her geese used to go to the neighbor's property and kind of harass their chickens. And one day he just got fed up and he thought maybe that was possibly predators attacking the geese. Maybe he just had enough of that. He just decided to shoot the geese. So only one of them survived, I think out of 4 or 5. And this is what I think out of 3. 3 didn't make it, 1 survived. And this is she was babying those geese. They were just this beautiful white, they looked like swans, They were her dream. And she ultimately, instead of getting angry and upset, one of the geese was severely wounded, but not dead yet. She called him. This was the first bird she would process, and she's like, "Could you please come and help me process the bird?"
Did he come?
Yes. So, and she didn't get angry. Well, she was angry at first, but then she just, okay, how I feel does not matter as much as the relationship with my neighbor. So this is just an example.
So hopefully in the future
Yes.
he won't just shoot the geese. He
Yes.
might mention
Yes.
the problem instead.
Yeah.
That is some deep wisdom right there, and also really sad.
Yeah.
It does sound like you've attracted a few people to come here to the Ozarks with
I
you.
know.
So how is your circle growing?
It is slowly growing, and I think part of it is because everyone who moved here eventually, not everybody started as a homesteader. I think it's almost something here in the air that attracts homesteaders, and not just in the air. I think because it's favorable for those kind of practices. One of them, like we live currently in Laclede County, and one of the reasons we picked that place is because it's unrestricted land use and zoning and building code. That was a big thing with what we want to do. For us, long term, it's not just farming and gardening. It is, the big picture is I want to build my earth home. So that is why we didn't settle like in the city, not only because I want to live, on the land, in the nature, and with the nature. I also want to be able to build that and not feel like I'm restricted and deal through bureaucracy. I've had enough bureaucracy. I just want to have that kind of sense of freedom, and that's kind of one of the things I've been wanting, and that's kind of, I feel like, where we are in Laclede County. The only thing I wish we had more of is more land. For what I want to do, 10 acres is not enough. So I would like to have more land, and where I'm surrounded with not just people who are farmers, but people who are sharing kind of similar values. And one of the things, for example, like California, we have open fencing laws, where in Missouri we don't. It's the opposite. So like I would love my animals if that they can roam and go. I drive around, I see, wow, everything is overgrown and everybody is overwhelmed. Not everybody, a lot of people are overwhelmed. They can't win that fight against nature, whereas we are, because we fence them in, they don't have enough. So like, how do others who feel like, and I think with open fencing laws, that could be a way to accomplish that, so that if you don't want any animals to come onto that part of the property, you fence that in, versus fencing everything
Out.
yeah.
I'm assuming since you all were coming from California, you probably looked at a number of different states,
Mm-hmm.
and so there was something about the Ozarks that attracted you, and,
Yes.
and it has a little bit to do with these favorable conditions. Is there anything else besides the zoning? Because I also want to talk a little bit about the challenges that you may have faced. I know one of the things about living here is that the soil can be very rocky.
Mm-hmm.
We can have pretty extremes. So what other kinds of factors were you looking at when you were making this decision?
So we were looking that it's not too cold, not too hot. That was a big thing. If I was just looking at the weather alone and what zone it is, probably I would have picked more like North Carolina. Our oldest daughter lives in North Carolina, so you have your winters even shorter, um, and but here it's like it's the algorithm. You know, it's the combination, not just the zone and the weather patterns, and but it is also unrestricted. And the cost was a big factor to how much the land cost. You know, the unrestricted land and the proximity to like where you are far from civilization, but not too far, or at least like you have the feel you're far away, but you're still close enough because starting from scratch, you have a lot of projects, you know. Um, the reality is, you said the challenges, the financial challenges were real because farming is a full-time job. It's yes, you might be able to do it as a hobby, maybe a hobby gardening, a few tomato plants. You can do maybe a hobby. One possibility is when you have the infrastructures, everything is set up, which when you're just studying, not only you don't know what to do and how to do it, that you're learning, you're like, okay, how do I do it? You go and you watch the videos, you read, you this, that, you talk to people, which takes time, which once you already know this, it's a lot faster, a lot easier. You don't have to figure out, okay, what store do I go to? What do I need to buy? How many milligrams of this? How much this? But the big part is infrastructure. You know, having the right shelters, having access to water, electricity, fencing. Once again, is a big part of that. So that was a big challenge for us. First of all, keeping the animals contained. Figuring what's the right material, how to do it. We're still arguing, you know, should it be 8 feet apart? Should it be 10 feet apart? You know, is the are the 5 feet post sufficient, or should we go with 6 feet T post? You know, we're still arguing about that. So, and it's like you haven't learned the lessons. But that's one of the things is. So that this are some of the challenges. Ticks, bugs was a big challenge. Poison ivy was a big challenge. Brown recluse spider bites. You know, I think my husband he would have lost if I was absent. I came back. By the time I came back, he couldn't walk. You know, brown recluse spider bite turned into severe staph infection. It took him a year to kind of recover from that. So these are the realities of farmers. Your animals, when they die, it's really hard. Sometimes it's the battle you can win, and sometimes you go and you ask yourself, is there something I could have done better? Is it my fault? Because you do blame yourself for things. You know, could have I prevented that accident? Just a lot of different things. Or another freaky accident. No, I don't want to mention that. Let's not go to that.
So it's not for the record. Maybe you'll tell us later. So those are some of the challenges. Do you have like a story, or is there a moment where you started doing this that you just felt like, yes, this is all worth it?
I think there are many days like that. There are many days, especially after the rain. When the weather comes down, you just go out and you sit and you watch the animals. It just peace. I just stand from the side. Just even the other day, I told my brother-in-law, "This is what you're living for." You know, and I enjoy, especially the moments when the animals are born. I love that, you know, new life, seeing new life. That's huge, and then seeing all the different personalities in the animals. One of our goats, my husband jokes about her. She's the best dog I ever had. You know, you go and you sit, you talk to them, and they're just like, not they're funny, but they're just. It's like, how can they be so much fun? I never thought that they could be so much fun.
That's terrific. Yeah. So is there a success that you have that you're really especially proud of? Something that was hard to do that you managed to do?
I'm not sure if it's a success, but one of the first things, it was not our steer. We bought a steer for meat. and we processed him with other family. And then that steer had about over 200 pounds of fat. It was a choice. Okay, yes, there's something I wanted to do in the future. I wanted to get into natural beauty products, and not beauty. I'm not so much into makeup and so on, but I'm into like daily use, soap, lotions, and so on. And I knew that's something I wanted to do in the future. But with 200 pounds of tallow, what do you do with it? It would be such. I was brought up not to waste anything. So wasting 200 pounds of tallow would have been shame. So for the next week, I was processing tallow, and then I had my niece's kids. They were coming over because they were looking for the house. So I would watch them very often. We had to do something, and one of the educational projects we made soap. So I made multiple batches, and it's been the first batch I made more than 2 years ago, and I just finished the last. I used the remainder of tallow that we had to make some soap, and recently my daughter said that she has a friend that she shared my soap with, and the girl has really bad case of eczema, and all the medications, different products she used wasn't helping her, and she used my soap, and her skin felt so much better and made me feel so happy. So I'm hoping that at this point, a lot of things are like almost like I'm experimenting or like prototyping. It's ideation phase, figuring things out, and I'm hoping that at some point, may or may do it by myself. I might have people who will come alongside, or will take my ideas, or will partner together, who will do maybe the marketing. Yes, I can do the business plan. Yes, I can work on marketing, but I don't have the time and the energy for all of that. So I'm hoping at some point to turn it into something, the value-added products, where we can make more products that are natural. All the ingredients in that soap, there's 3 main ingredients. I call it 3+: tallow, lye, and water. And then all the other ingredients, you can eat them. So like either goat milk, or I use watermelon rinds, I use just sugar, oats, chocolate, whatever. And I think that, and I've heard some other testimonies too. People shared with me, like another example was like, somebody was working fixing the car, so their hands were greasy, and none of the products that they had even normally used for that purpose were not working. He said, I used your soap, and it just came off so nicely. I was like, yes. So tell me more stories like that.
Where did you learn the recipe to do that?
Research. I researched a lot, and sometimes it's like I tried it, and then I've kind of modified that, and I tried it again. So if you ask me what is my exact recipe, yes, I have the baseline. But if you ask me what in particular this soap, sometimes I might not be able, because some people follow the recipes directly. Like for me, I have a hard time following everything to a point. It's like if I did it again, I'll just kind of, it's about like that, If you want exact recipe, sorry, that's me. Like you do it until it becomes this way. So that's the challenge.
Yeah. Have you been that way your whole life, or is that
I
something?
think so, more. I think I do like a bigger picture. Detail is my enemy. I've been trained to focus on the detail, but I prefer that other people step in and do the detail. But unfortunately right now, until I'm able to focus on the bigger things, I have to work on a lot of small things.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing is, it is important to remember farming requires good health, but it is kind of, what is it, the chicken or the egg? I think part of farming, big issue, I've had severe health issues, and after coming here, I felt like my health has become so much better. I can do physically so much more than I've been able to do even like 4, 5, 6 years ago. I did have a little bit of a setback. I had COVID, but it's not huge. So a couple months ago, but it's nothing compared to what it was before. So I feel like farming not only helps us to be healthier with what we eat, but also by what we do.
Yeah, yeah. Do you attribute that not only to like maybe the physical changes, but also these kind of mental changes?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. It's both. It's both, definitely. Just working in the nature and with the nature, working with the animals. I used to joke like goats are the best goat. Like come over for goat therapy. So and that's how it works for me too. After having gone through a lot of changes, a lot of crisis, a lot of medical issues in our family, I felt like I had almost like a form of medical PTSD, and I felt like, okay, this is what's helping me. The journey is longer than I would have expected, but I think it's part of the journey. I don't think any medicine would have helped with that. No therapy sessions would have helped that. I think it's just a natural journey of healing. And at the same time, while you're facing some of the things are in the past, but some things are still challenging and ongoing. So in some ways, having that extra responsibility is kind of, it feels like it's a burden. But on the other hand, going out to that, even just for an hour, even 15 minutes, like, okay, take a deep breath. And I just just an example, like I was gone for a few weeks, actually more than a few weeks. And then, so I didn't see my cows. And I came over and I saw my cows just hanging out with them for a little bit. I told my husband, I didn't realize how much I missed them. I was like, they're cows, but I missed them.
They probably missed you too.
I hope so too.
Yeah. Well, is there any advice you would give someone who is starting this kind of a journey and this maybe even considering changing their life so that they could do homesteading, farming?
I would say don't be afraid of that big change. Keep in mind there will be difficult days. There will be days when you feel like, why am I doing it? Like it's almost like natural to go back to your previous lifestyle. But then you need to go back to remember, why are you doing that? So before you get into that, ask yourself a question: why? Why do you want to do that? And hold on to that. If you need to, write it down. Remind yourself. Get yourself a group of people that are passionate about that they can provide support for each other. So, and remember, it's going to cost money. It may not be as fast as you want to and as profitable as you want to. So be ready to be ready that there will be difficult days.
Yeah. You mentioned that your husband is a teacher. Is he still teaching?
Yes.
So this is something that we found with a number of people that we've interviewed, is that a lot of times you have to have a day job, and then this passion is something that a lot of times takes extra time. Are you working in another field as well right now?
Not right now. I was intermittently here and there, but it's difficult for me to combine. Maybe once our infrastructure is in a better place, then I will be able to commit myself to a full-time job, because nowadays people, they can't wait for the answers. They can't wait for a phone call back, and I feel like I can't provide the service that they are asking for, they need, and deserve. So until I'm able to give them that, I feel like, let me focus on this. And once I feel like I'm ready for that, unless whatever I do comes out of what I'm doing, if it makes sense. It doesn't distract from, but it is part of that. So like if, for example, kids want to come and learn how to take care of the animals, perfect. Or you want me to provide research that's kind of also can be used for this, that would be in a similar field. I'll be more than happy. Like some of the things I've been working to simplify instructions for myself. I like, with a business like mine, I put everything into in a bullet form, outline, and then I just look, what are the keywords, what are the key things, because people will not remember everything. And I think that's one of the challenges. There's so much information, and how do you pull out what are the important things to remember, or what are the things to simplify? Like, for example, there's a great presentation about bookkeeping, great approach to bookkeeping. It's natural, catch the local ones, the wild horizontal hives, their books. I have 2 books written about that, and I was trying to go through this, and it's like, okay, I bought a beehive, and it's been sitting there since last year. I didn't set it out. I know it's a pretty easy process, and the reason I didn't do it because I didn't break it down into A, B, C steps for myself yet, which will take me time to just go. And the process is simple.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so much information that I'm about how do we simplify, how do we create the process as a toaster-like experience. You push the button and it does the job. So this is kind of, with the business background, that's another thing that with an MBA, and I'm hoping to be able to apply those skills more to a farm. The problem is the challenge, I'm not there yet because I haven't learned the pieces of the puzzle, and the big piece of the puzzle is how to take care of the animals. So I think I'm getting to a place where I'm getting better. I don't know how to. I'll need to at some point, if we are to continue in that, figuring out how to turn into a business model. So that's something. If I'm to look into a future, what do I need to work on? So after completing the infrastructure, I need to figure out the business model and figure out for the business model, what is it that I want to work with and in. So yes, I want to have all the types of different animals as part of the holistic homestead, but in terms of the business model, what is it that should be the focus for the business side of it?
For example, if you were going to sell soap or
Correct.
some other kind of
Yes.
holistic health,
Correct.
homeopathic stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow, so much, Lily. I mean, your life is so fascinating to me because you've mentioned so many countries. Were you working in those countries, or do you just like to travel a lot?
No, we lived in China for a few years. We worked there. In India, it's multiple things going on there. There's a school there. I've visited orphanages there. We have friends who do different programs there. So in other countries, I did some law studies abroad in Guatemala, England, and Austria. So just a lot of things.
And you're teaching in these places?
I was teaching in China primarily, but in Ukraine, when we used to go, my last time, it's been a while, we used to do a lot of teaching as well, most of it in the religious setting, but we did take it outside. We did a lot of business teachings. I have background in tax law, even before I got into legal career.
Yeah.
So we did a lot of seminars and kind of in that area as well. So I even taught in the context of when I worked for the state of California, just teaching the taxpayers about compliance with, with tax laws and so on, how to complete their tax returns and so on. That's been always part of, teaching has been always part of what I've been doing. So at some point when one of the things that I would like to continue is teaching.
Well, especially with your interests in community and developing community and mentoring. I mean, I think that there's probably people here who could learn a lot from you.
And I can learn from them.
And also just want to say, so you've started over a lot of times,
Yes.
moving to all these countries, and you've also raised your children in that kind of a climate. So that gives them a kind of an ability to, get into things pretty. I'm just wondering, because you mentioned your daughter was in the Peace Corps, if you feel like that sort of impacted the way that they.
I think absolutely did impact a lot of the interests. I think at the same time, they're also choosing somewhat their own journey.
Sure.
They're all pretty independent. And in some ways, they impacted us too. It's just kind of interesting. Our middle daughter, she's a teacher This year she will be a second grade teacher. Last year she was third grade teacher. And it is kind of fun to have a lot of, well, when we get together, my husband and my daughter and I were just having all these conversations about all the different practices and how to make things better. I think once you're a teacher, you're always a teacher. And even though I haven't been teaching the last few years in an official setting, I'm always looking. I'm big about grammar, just about different inclusivity or inclusiveness in the classroom, and just so many different things. And my husband and I, we talk often. He is working on his master's degree. He's about to finish, and we constantly talk about, classroom management, some of the biggest challenges in the classroom. And actually, one of my, I wouldn't say the dream, but one of my goals and dreams on the list on things I would like to accomplish is to have a kind of a school that is very much attached to reality and to a local life, and Homestead being part of it, a big part of it. So you don't just learn about what other people, yes, part of the global learning, you do learn about other people's, but things that are relevant to you about the nature, the things that are growing, what are the things that are edible, what are the things that are healthy, how to take care of the animals, living with that. So it's kind of all integrated, incorporated into part of the school. I was just reading something, it's kind of book from the book of recipes, and it's like how to raise your kids, 6 kids, sunshine, river, and I think that should be part of the, the kids shouldn't be sitting just behind a desk, whatever, 6-8 hours a day. They should be experiencing life, touching things. They should be smelling things. I was watching how they're born, that's kind of, I envy my niece who has 6 kids, and the kids get to see that. Now they have sheep, they have goats, they have longhorn cows, they have the birds. They learn them at different stages. So it's part of the learning about life.
So it's not only goat therapy, it's also like goat pedagogy.
Yes, exactly.
I love this, yeah.
Yes, and it's a cross-curricular approach. You're learning the language, you're learning the math, you're learning the skills, business skills, life, taking care of life. We talked with my oldest daughter. It's like the kids get out of high school, they don't know how to hammer a nail or use a screwdriver, and that's kind of the things they need to learn. How to use a chainsaw, how to sharpen it, how to change oil in the car, how to do basic bookkeeping, and we teach them about a lot of abstract things. Yes, it is important to have common core standards, English, math, and so on, but make it relevant, make it applicable to their daily life, especially to their world and this world we live in.
Preach, yes. that is so dead on. I think we've probably covered most of these questions. I wonder is there anything you would want people in general to know that we haven't covered? Like, is there any part of this adventure, this journey that you're on that you feel like people would benefit from knowing more about?
It's a strange kind of thought, or a statement I'm about to say, that very often people have a hard time processing a chicken, even. Like, I can't kill the chicken, or they don't even know how to do that, and never done that, and don't want to do that, but they eat meat. And it's like, so I feel like if you I think it's hypocrisy to not be willing to kill an animal or process the animal and then eat meat. So it's like they're mutually exclusive thing. So you're either willing and ready to do that, which is a hard thing when you raise your animals. That's one of the challenges that I have, is to let go of some of my animals, because I bond with them. To me, they are not a number; they have names. So it's hard for me to process an animal that has a name. So, and especially, it's a little bit easier with chickens, to be honest. With sheep and goats, it's hard. It's really, really hard.
And is this something that you've just learned in the last few years, or is it something
New
that
life.
you knew from childhood?
No, what I learned in the last few years, kind of the principle, like, or the, I don't know, even call statement. Didn't think that way before. Yes, I did kill, a goose once in my life. Yes, I processed like chickens before, but not in a way that I could say like, oh, I knew how to do that. Like I had to do it all over again. I did have to watch the videos again, how to do it. Yes, I did process, sheep, goats, pigs. The other day I processed a pig all by myself. So it wasn't it was a pot belly, but a process is kind of funny thing to do, like a lawyer processing a pig.
Are there any similarities?
Well, no, other than you do learn a little bit about anatomy.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's, I don't know if I could dissect a frog just for the sake of doing it. But if it's, for me, if you want to eat meat, you should be able to process the animal.
This whole project that we're doing is about preserving stories of farming and preserving our Ozarks agricultural heritage, which you're not from here, but you chose here and you are impacting and you are a part of our history from here forward. I guess, is there anything else that you would say is distinct about farming in the Ozarks, or things that you hope don't get lost?
I do. I think one big part is that there's some things that remind me of Ukraine, and that one of the things that I appreciated is that people are still pretty friendly here. So you don't always see that in other states, and especially in bigger city. So I've heard more than once from like one neighbor, this is what the neighbors do. So, and this is what the neighbors do. I hope that this is something that is preserved in the future, that it's not just about our lives and just our immediate family, but it is about the community. Yes, maybe it's not exactly like perfect that I was mentioning in the tribal life in India that I really appreciated how they do things. And I didn't actually, moved on, I didn't describe what kind of community they have and some of the practices that they have that really, really touched me. And I hope for us to keep that alive, and maybe even if something has been lost that maybe it was there before, but kind of we moved away from that. I hope that it comes back, and I hope that we continue to have. Obviously, within the city limits, you have a little bit more restrictions with zoning and enforcement. But one of the things I appreciate that, and I compare, having been in many different parts of this country, and even having lived where there's a lot of restrictions, a lot of enforcement, whether the grass is mowed, whether there's no trash on the ground. In here, what I noticed, there are parts where there's no enforcement, there's no code, there's no zoning, no tickets being issued, nobody's taking to court for those tickets. And versus there's some places where enforcement, tickets. Without enforcement, the places are better maintained and taken care of than where they are. So the question is like, why is this happening? But better yet, can we keep that kind of sense of liberty? Is that like free of intervention, where people do what is good and right on their own? So that's one of the things being somebody who loves freedom, though having grown up during the Soviet times, I think that was very difficult for me. The moment I was a teenager when the Soviet Union collapsed, just sense of freedom came. And I've that sense of freedom I carried with me everywhere I go. And I don't like restrictions. I don't like in being in a small confined place. I don't want to be in a small room. I like outside. I like that freedom, and I hope that that's continued. This is one of the things that distinguishes from other states, especially the western states, is that people can use the land they want to, and the thing is, they choose to do what's good for the land. They'll choose to take care of their homes. Obviously, not all of them, but they do it because they want to. So I hope that's being preserved, and I think people here. A lot of people are hardworking. They and because they're hardworking, a lot of people have land. Farming is not a foreign thing. There's everyone to talk to. It's like, oh, I'm doing this. It's like it's hard to like. People are having a hard time selling eggs right now, and it is a good thing. Why? Because it's not because they don't like eggs, they don't want eggs, but because they have their own chickens. In California, I didn't know people who had chickens, other than a friend of ours that they had wild chickens came over into their property. It was kind of a random thing, and they lived in the tree in front of their house in the subdivision. It was like, what? It was a crazy thing. But that is what I like, and I hope that it goes on. So to summarize, that freedom, unrestricted liberty, friendliness. People pretty much, I haven't had any bad experience here. Oh, you came from California, especially during the COVID time. Didn't see that at all. And another thing I did notice that I think people here are longing. We have a friend we met here. He lived here all entire life. He grew up here. He was born here. His family is from here. He's been going to the same church since childhood. They recently left the church. Why? They don't have any friends there. The church where they grew up, they spent their childhood in. And it's like, you've been living here. Yes, we don't have friends. But they are longing to have friends. They want to have a community. I think it's for us to remember. We need to remember that. Let's do things together. Let's butcher that hog together. Let's do the harvesting together. Let's plant that harvest together. Let's do the fencing together. Let's sing songs together.
I think that's one thing we see among our Mennonite neighbors,
Yes.
for sure. Yeah, I don't know, have you found a community that's doing that in the rural area? Did you see you're going to Phillipsburg?
Phillipsburg. One of the challenges we have, so I think we should have coordinated our move here better, where we would have stayed closer to each other. So at least we have the phone and we see each other kind of once in a while. But I think one of the things we're lacking is that we're still too far. One of our families who moved, we're in Phillipsburg, they're in the Republic. It's almost an hour drive. So yes, it is a challenge. But we do have a project. I'm hoping sometime in the future, I'm not sure when we'll get to it, we purchased land together with two other families. It is, hopefully will be an eco-village.
Terrific. With earth houses?
Yes.
Did you read the Little House on the Prairie books when you were young?
No, we did not, but I'm not sure if I read the book, but I know about the book, and I know it's somewhere from here,
Yeah,
Mansfield area,
Yeah,
I think.
that's it.
Yes, that is, I think we are working on building the skills, learning the skills. One of my friends, she's working on building Earth Home. So I mentioned to you about her, and I don't know if you met her. So, and that's one of the things we want to work on. Once we get our animals under control, the situation, the kind of everything, that will be one of the next things we will be working on.
Is there a kind of a long-term plan to go off-grid and be self-sufficient?
Yes, we would like that. And I think for multiple reasons is there's some people who believe in doom and gloom. So I'm not exactly in that camp. I know difficult times may come, having lived through different seasons and having gone through the collapse of the Soviet Union when the economy just was gone, and our parents did not get paid for a few years, and which was a common thing. People, they worked but didn't get paid, and then unemployment rate was pretty much 100%. That was interesting times, and that's where it's kind of interesting that difficult times and desperate times sometimes give birth to the best things. When we were in China, we talked to our friends from South Africa, and they were talking about when the country was basically they couldn't export anything, nothing could be imported. During that time, they built more of their own industries than they did outside of that. So I think it is sometimes not a bad thing when we go through difficult times, because then we develop certain skills we wouldn't have otherwise. And like with that steer, I wouldn't have started making soap if it wasn't for 200 pounds of fat. So yes, I would like to have my own electricity, not just for the sake of doom and gloom, but so that provide the zero emissions impact. So I would like that, and more than that, I would like my home to be cave-like temperature, consistent year-round, so that I don't like when it's hot. My comfort zone is 50 degrees, not even 65, so between 50 and 60. So it will be hard to achieve, but anything below 70, I'll be very happy. And I was just watching recently again about, I think it was Italian, in Fresno, California, which gets like 110 summers, just it's a desert, how he built underground the whole like it's just beautiful. Like there's a garden he was growing, there's like orange trees, and they're more than 100 years old, whereas on average a citrus tree would be no more than 50 years old. But because of the environment that he created, that this tree is able to live so much longer. And that's kind of one of the things I want. Earth homes, not only walls made of earth, but also incorporating kind of a cellar-like approach, earth berm. That's part of the things, and using natural resources. That's one of the things I'm still researching. One of the things that's kind of I'm very interested is in hemp, not in medicinal hemp, but in hemp for as a construction material, and hemp as just multi-purpose. I don't have enough land to grow it, and don't have enough knowledge and the skill and tools to work with. But I think as a principle, I feel like there's a huge future in that.
Yeah, agree.
I actually want to, in the house we're remodeling right now, I want to use hempcrete walls. So instead of using your fiberglass insulation, your drywall texture and paint, all chemicals, who knows what they are, I would love to use hempcrete. Actually, it wouldn't be correct. Crete stands for concrete, but instead of concrete, I would rather use lime with hemp. It's much more natural. So that's one of the things, and that's I would like to not just use one natural method building, but multi. So like almost like we'll start with small, but the bigger picture is using different building approaches to build a variety of buildings using locally sourced and natural materials. That's kind of long term.
I love that.
Hopefully have enough life left.
And also very Ozarks though, because that's in that Laura Ingalls Wilder book, that's the house that they lived in, was one of those earth houses.
Mm. Yeah, that's how our house is. Like one of the things, earth homes. Both of my grandparents' homes, they were earth homes.
In Ukraine.
Yes. So it's a traditional Ukrainian home in the village. It was made from clay. The cob house is clay mixed with straw. They also incorporated like horse manure. It's usually, I remember as a kid in the summers was kind of, you go around the village to collect the horse manure, and then you integrate it into the mix to fix the walls of the house, especially one of the sides. I think it was the northern side that during, northwestern probably, that was damaged the most. And I remember just working with my mom to patch that side. It was kind of fun thing to do. I didn't think it was fun as a kid, but I think it is kind of this are the things, like I think there comes a point in our lives, maybe when you're, I don't know at what age, it's different for everyone, But a lot of things I'm reflecting back on my childhood, working for some reason, just like the homesteading, I'm reflecting back on that. Though I didn't learn much in childhood, but it's kind of almost nostalgic in a sense. Certain smells, even just walking, like some people will probably find it gross. It's like, oh, we're city, we don't want to be in. I miss that. It's not as strong. Like when I drive down Freeway 5 from Sacramento to LA, and we've done so many times, there's such a strong overwhelming sense of manure. There's like there's a few places, and it just like you close your windows and you just close your nose. It's just so overwhelming. And some people's like, well, cows, don't they smell bad? You don't want to live close to the cows. No, you don't smell them. There's not a single place I've been here. Why? Because you don't have 5,000 cows on 1 acre. You might have 5 cows on 10 acres. And that's what I have, 5 cows on 40 acres. So no way they will smell. They will not smell. And even what I have right now, like there's a paddock, like with the sheep and goats all together. And it's a little bit, when they come for the night and there's still, usually there's more manure there. Well, it's not poop, whatever you call it. I just like that gentle. It reminds me of my childhood. I don't know. There's just it's real. It's part of life. It's gold for my garden. That will be my future tomatoes. It will be whatever is in that garden. I enjoy it. It's not waste for me. It's not a bad thing. I love it. I love earth. And one that I learned to love earth from my daughter, my oldest daughter. She was just like, picking up dirt, and it was just like expressing how much she just loves, even as an adult, loving dirt.
Yeah, so many of these visceral memories from childhood,
Mhm.
like how you had that like craving for that farmer's cheese and that raw milk. Yeah, there's those kinds of things that accompany us into adulthood that come from who knows what, your ancestors, your family.
Yeah. When we came to Missouri, I really wanted to go to Ukraine at that time. It was very difficult. It's been a long time since we've been there. And I said, we can go to Ukraine, but Ukraine came to us. It was such a like.
That's the name of the book.
Yeah, it was. Yes, there's still parts like, but I feel like it's almost like that. We have different, either like an itch or different longings, and I struggled. Since I came to the United States, I came in '94. I never felt like I belonged. I never felt it was my home. When I first came to Southern California, I felt like it was too tight for me. Orange County, it was just like, I felt like it was just too many people, too many cars, too many buildings. We moved to Sacramento area. I just still felt like at that time, it wasn't as many people. I mean, it was spread out. And I always felt like we're gonna move. And I thought we're gonna move in a year or two. It didn't happen. It was just like, and we stayed there and we stayed there. And I always felt like, and my husband was saying, you're just not able to be content. Maybe it's your problem. And just like I would go to India, I feel happy there. Like going to Ukraine, I'm happy there. I go to Poland, I'm happy there. I come back, I'm not. And he was like, you just don't know how to be happy. And we moved here. It's like, I don't want to go anywhere now. So much for that theory.
Oh, I'm so glad you're home.
Yes, I feel at home. Yep.
Sounds like you have a good intuition too.
Mm.
It's like you've had a few moments of like following your gut, or the feeling of the thought of being a lawyer again, and you just know that that's not right, and that's not going to bring you the joy that you're looking for.
That's right.
So I commend you for following that and not questioning that like so many of us do.
Thank you. It was a challenge. Financially, it was difficult, very, very difficult. But at the same time, we had some like dry runs in terms of I know that people so well prepared for difficult times. Like if there's nothing in the stores, if no electricity, we're not prepared at all. We're not even prepared for a storm. We don't have a backup generator, so we need to get it done. We don't even have a shelter. We do need to have that done. So far, it's right now like a faith-based approach. Nothing bad will happen until we're ready for that. Like Noah approach, the flood didn't come until he finished building the ark. So that's kind of maybe we feel, because we first need to make sure it's not just about us. I'm thinking, okay, we need shelter for animals that is storm-proof. Right now, it is a shelter, but it is not storm-proof. And I'm thinking, I was watching, I don't remember her name, a woman who was pretty much in the medical field. I think she's a doctor, maybe not a like MD doctor, but a doctor. She, I think, was in physical therapy or something like that. And then she retired, and she invested years in not just in goats, but really sheep or goats, doesn't matter, and really breeding like good qualities, characteristics, and pretty much at that point she's getting older and she understands life is not eternal here on earth. And then but she was talking about an emergency plan, what to do in case if there's fire, what if there's some other storm, what if she's not able to like a backup plan. So that's one of the things. It is on our list, but we're not there yet. So I hope that we don't need to make and integrate a backup or like the emergency plan for ourselves and the animals until we're ready for that. So I'm really, really hoping.
Me too. Yeah. But it sounds like you have just so much joy from this, these sacrifices. Like it's not easy.
Yes, there's joy. There are days I feel like, especially in cold winters, one of the things I want, there's the house, here's the shop, and here's the barn. There's big distance, and especially when it's very cold, very stormy, when you're sick, that's when you feel like, why am I doing it? The days when you're healthy, the days when the weather is great, it's like, oh, that's why I'm doing it. So that's something to remember. And another thing, it is so good not to do it alone. I think it's another reason to have a community. I really appreciate, like with my brother-in-law right now. So when we are working on our property B, he is there able to take care of the farm, because especially in the evening, by the time I get back, I'm exhausted. I don't feel like even walking 10 more feet. So it is so important to have to do it together, and it's especially if you have kids, for them to learn that. And I hope that, and I don't know how to, but that the kids don't feel like they're forced to do it, that they're not just taking care of chores, but somehow they're passionate. And my niece's kids, it's incredible. They're, especially their oldest, all of them are pretty passionate about it in different ways. Their oldest daughter, so she was 13 when they moved. I think she was 13 when they moved here. She knew more about homesteading than I did after probably been doing it for a few months. She could name probably, like, just as an example, yes, that it doesn't indicate how much she knows about homesteading overall. She had a lot of here, not as much experience yet, but she could name like probably 50 different chicken breeds. So she has been, like, by now she has banded a steer. She's been taking, like, all of this in the last couple of years. Yes, they work hard. Yes, they're kind of away from their the community they would like to be part of. It's closer to Springfield, so she could get involved in the church. But my goodness, they're thriving there. It's so much fun. They're working on the fencing. She's learning to take care of the cows. Since then, they already had their own cow, multiple sheep, multiple goats. They help with the process. When they did have an issue, they called me. I helped when they couldn't take care of themselves. But my goodness, they know so much, and I just wish my kids did too.
this is your niece's family, so
Yes.
is that your sister or brother's child?
Technically, my second niece, my cousin's daughters.
Okay, so, but their background also comes from Ukraine?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And the same thing for her. She grew up in the city. The mother grew up in the city, um, and I think more and more people who come to this area, even they may not initially start homesteading, it's like it's in the air. They begin to, like, one of my friends I mentioned, like, and the husband's like, why did you move here? I don't want to be here. I want to be in the city. And now they start with chickens. Now they have dogs and geese. They're not ready for the animals, but nevertheless, they have that. They've started their own garden, the first time ever in their lives. So now they have their own tomatoes, own cucumbers, and they're continuing to grow as much as they're comfortable. And the same thing, my other friend she was a big gardener before. Now she's kind of expanding her capacities. She has chickens, she has ducks, she has meat chickens. Now she has pigs, she has kuni. So they're growing. And a lot of it, for them, it comes because they want to have good quality food.
Yeah. And where do you think they're learning? TikTok?
No, not TikTok. YouTube, they find a lot more. My friend has a lot of books. She's been doing gardening for years. I can learn a lot from her just by going into her garden and looking all the different plants she planted together, all the different flowers and what goes with what. So she would be my teacher for the garden. But she's crazy. So when they decided to move back from Florida, so they came here, they spent here the summer, then they decided to move from Florida. They went to Florida within a week. She turned around, drove back, came on, is it Saturday morning when they have the homestead fair? They drove through the night, I think. She got in, took a shower, went to the homestead fair all day long. And she's like, let's go.
Mm-hmm.
And then she even missed her friend's wedding.
That's when you know you love homesteading.
She's like, and then within a week, she did that. Pack all her things in Florida. So 2 days driving, a few days to pack, 2 days to come back.
Wow.
And then going to the homestead fair in Marshville.
So there's obviously something here that really captures people, not just like for work to do, but like their soul, like you said before.
Mm-hmm. Once again, I think it's the freedom to be able to do that. I think climate, it's kind of, there's parts of it that are okay. What is good is that you have a lot of sunny days. I think for the farmers would say it's challenging, especially this spring, knowing when to plant because it's so unpredictable. For those who have animals, we have met a family who moved from Wisconsin because it's the winter it's much shorter than in Wisconsin, so you don't have to buy as much hay. So you have that. The cost of land, so it's still much more affordable than in other places for how much land you can get. So for like 10 acres, there's no way we could have gotten that in California. If we did, it would be just so far away from anything, from everything, that it would just not make sense. And then even then, you would have to have a lot of restrictions. So if your great grandparents were farmers and you have that land, that could probably work for somebody on the West Coast. Whereas here, it's a good place for starters, for people, especially, with being able to get a piece of land. Most places you can't even a quarter of an acre, it's going to be more than 100,000, and you can't even find, like in Sacramento area where we are from, there's no land. Period. Nothing.
Well, we're glad you found your
Thank you.
way here.
Thank you so much.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And the thing is, what I found, the kind of people this lifestyle attracts, the most amazing people. And
Amen.
There's something special about the Ozarks and the people who will drop everything and pull over and help you with your flat tire, or just, I mean, we are helpers. We're stubborn and can be a little rough around the edges, but overall very friendly, and they want people to feel welcome and like they're loved.
Not long ago, my husband had a flat tire, and he said, like, while I was stuck, like, waiting for you guys to come over, a couple of people stopped by that asked whether I needed help. You don't usually see that as often in other places, and he's always kind of stops to as much as possible to help. So that's another thing that I hope, and that's for us growing up. That's how it was for us. Not only we would stop for people, but it was very common hitchhiking. To go from place A to B. We as kids, we hitchhiked all the
Really?
time. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
And
That's a little bit too trusting for.
And we hitchhiked not only with, like, it's usually you would hitchhike outside of the city. So you would go from one city to another city, or from a city to a village. So that was such a common thing for us. And we just did that.
Do you remember the name of your grandparents' village?
Yes.
Can we record it for the?
Sure. Which side? Paternal, maternal?
Both.
Yeah. The paternal it's Gritsky, and the maternal is Yavarovцы. Good luck.
I'm going to spell that now.
And there's Russian version, there's Ukrainian version, so I should probably stay with the Ukrainian version.
Yes.
So yeah.
I have so enjoyed learning more about you.
Me too.
There's a lot
Okay.
more than
Wow.
I mean, we've only met a few times, but
Just like layers and
Yeah.
layers. And then when I lived
definitely.
in India, and then when I
Yeah,
was
how many languages do you speak?
Well, English, Ukrainian, Russian. I know Polish quite well. Especially I understand a lot more. It just, when you don't use it, you lose it. I have a pretty good grasp of Spanish, but not like where I can speak fluently right now. A little bit of German, a little bit of French. So, but once again, I understand a lot more when I read, and that's how when I learned English, I could read and understand a lot more than I could speak. So that's
very impressive.
Yeah.
Just
glad you're here.
English, Ukrainian, Russian, little
Yeah,
bit
just
of
a
this,
few.
little bit of that.